Yeah, okay, excellent. So, hello everyone. It's morning here in Sweden. When I look out the window, it's snowing. It's cold. It's white currently everywhere, but in a couple of hours, it's probably going to be pretty gray, won't it, Pierre? Because the snow is actually melting, which turns into a gray and brown mist outside.
Agree.
That's
I don't have any snow here, and I live a few minutes from you, so no,
yeah.
I don't have any snow.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how it is here in Sweden, right? The weather is changing as we speak, basically. Well, so thank you so much for being here, listening to me and Pierre. So today we will look into how to kind of Windows 11, right? That's kind of a big deal right now. We'll look into some new of the security features within Windows 11, how to use Microsoft Intune to manage Windows 11 and said security features. And then, yeah,
Yes, we will look into Defender for Endpoint and do some hunting with the smart screen and other hunting stuff, basically, and also go through the KQL fundamentals very quickly.
yeah. So kind of mixing those two technologies together, right? Microsoft Intune and Defender for Endpoint, because there's some pretty cool stuff we can do in terms of security. So who are we? My name is Niklas. I already told you. I live in Sweden. I work at within the security client team at OneWin, and yeah, it's all about security and the end user experience for me. So yeah, and Pierre, over to you.
Yeah, I work at the same company as Niklas in the cloud security team, looking into more Sentinel, Defender for Endpoint, and Azure stuff, the cloud adoption framework and enterprise scale and all of that funny and funky stuff, right? And I'm also a security MVP and MVP with Niklas as well.
Yeah, that's right. So let's get started. So we are. I hope that we are all aware of this date, Windows 10 end of life date. And this is kind of a big deal because after this date, there will be no new security updates coming from Microsoft. So we need to kind of plan to get to Windows 11. And don't be alarmed if you remember Windows 7 upgrades to Windows 10. I know it was kind of a big deal. It was a struggle most of the time. Sometimes it went smoothly, but when it comes to Windows 11, there is a pretty good quote out there. I'm not sure who said it first, but Windows 11 is the best version of Windows 10. So technically, in kind of on the backstage, it's using the same display name and so on. So the build number and so on is changing, but the NT version is the same, meaning that there is a very good chance that drivers and apps will actually work as they did in Windows 10. There are, however, some hardware requirements that we need to consider when it comes to Windows 11. 4 gigabytes of RAM, it's that just to kind of boot the the system, right? With Windows 11, you probably don't want to run Teams or something like that on a box with 4 gigabytes of RAM because Teams does use quite a bit of RAM, right? So but other than that, it's very important to know about the TPM hardware requirement because when it comes to TPM, it does require TPM 2.0, meaning that TPM 1.2 is no longer or will not be supported. So keep that in mind. And the reason for this is basically in terms of security at the bottom line, because without TPM 2.0, there will be no TPM attestation and so on. So that's the kind of the whole reason around it. And it is possible to kind of bypass those hardware requirements, but then it's important to know that your PC will no longer be supported by Microsoft, and it won't be entitled to receive updates, meaning that you are pretty much left on your own. If it works, then it's going to work, but when it doesn't work, you can't call Microsoft and ask them to help you because it's not supported. You are in an unsupported state. So, and once you have upgraded or updated to Windows 11, there are some pretty cool features out there that's I wanted to highlight. The first one is local account lockout. This is not necessarily unique to Windows 11, but it does come out of the box for new installations of Windows 11 22H2. So I kind of wanted to bring this one up for some demo and such in this this session. You probably know about it already. It's been around for some time, but it's pretty cool that you can actually use this for the built-in local admin account nowadays. So I told you already that it's included and enabled by default on Windows 11 22H2. But it's good to know that if you come from Windows 10 and upgrade to Windows 11 22H2, then it won't be enabled by default. So that's kind of good to know. I think someone needs to mute their microphone. If the organizer could help me with that, maybe.
Yeah, I will mute all.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I have muted all. You kindly please unmute yourself and you can start.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you. So this will actually interfere with Windows Labs in some ways. So it's good to know about it, enable it, test it out, and enable it, roll it out after you have tested this and you have a good solid plan around it. So if we have a look at it, it's pretty easy to configure if you are on a hybrid joint device, because then you can use group policies from the AD to do this. This will actually work for servers and such as well. But if you are on a cloud only, like an Entra ID joined only device, then you will actually need to use Intune, right? Because there will be no group policies that we can use. And this is actually not something we can do as for today, because it does require Windows Insider to use the CSP. But you could use scripts and so on. So kind of package a script and use Intune to deploy it. So there is no possibility to use Intune with or the CSP, the policy CSP for this as for now, but you can use other ways. And if we have a look at a command here called net accounts, as you can see here, let me just do this. As you can see here, we have lockout threshold, lockout duration, and lockout observation window. So for the first one, lockout threshold, as you can see, it's set to free. Let me zoom for you. It's set to free, meaning that after free, wrong attempts to sign on with the built-in local admin account, then it's going to lock out. And the lockout duration is basically about, okay, so for how long do we want to lock this out in minutes? The default setting for this one is 10 minutes, and the lockout observation window is within how many minutes do we count these wrong password attempts, the wrong login attempts. So 3 attempts within 10 minutes will lock the account for 10 minutes as per these settings. So let's try it out. I will open, okay, where is my mouse pointer? Let's see what is going on. Thank you, Zoom it. So my mouse pointer is hidden for some reason after using Zoom it. Let's see if I can bring it back in some way. Come on. Nope. Okay. I will need to do this without a mouse pointer then, I guess. Okay. So I did record this anyway. So here I am. I'm trying to sign on with my account, the local account. As you can see, I'm putting the wrong password. Trying, username and password is incorrect, and bam, the reference account is currently locked out and may not be logged on to. And when I look at the built-in account, I can see that the account is locked out. It's going to automatically unlock after, in this case, 10 minutes. So yeah, that's pretty good to know about, that this feature is available to even cloud-only devices, and it's really important to know that it is enabled by default on Windows 11 22H2, but it's not enabled by default if you upgrade coming from an earlier build, right? So yeah, definitely do check that one out. Next one, which I would like to point out here, is the Network List Manager. So back in the days, we weren't able to determine whether our cloud-only devices were logged on to our internal network, on-prem or behind our perimeter, or if it was using or connected to home office or from anywhere else. But with the new the Windows Firewall template within Intune, we can actually create something that's called, or you can use the Network List Manager to kind of determine whether or not we are on premise. And when or if we are connected to the on-premise network, then the domain level of the domain profile of the Windows Firewall will be enabled, which is great, right? Because we have a lot of policies coming from, or settings for the Windows Firewall coming from on-prem, and this really helps out to migrate those policies to when we are looking into the Entra ID joined only. Let's see if I have my mouse pointer available. No, I'm not sure what is going on. So anyway, what you would need to do within the Intune portal is to create a new Defender firewall policy, and at the bottom within that said policy, you can actually configure this, and it will work as long as you can use TLS to connect to an on-premise web service or anything else by using TLS. So that's kind of the prerequisite to get going with this. Enhanced phishing protection. This is pretty cool. If you haven't checked it out already, definitely do so, because with this we can actually help our users work correctly. Putting passwords within a notepad, that's kind of a thing, right? Or within any Office application or even Edge. But now we can actually help our users to not do that. So when a user signs on to Windows with a password, Windows will obviously know about the password, and then it will be able to use the enhanced phishing protection within the smart screen controls on your device to kind of identify when a user is saving the password within a Word document or in an email or at multiple sites within Edge, because we don't want our users to use or to reuse the password, right? And also within Notepad, which is pretty common that you see nowadays. I've seen a user, saving all of his passwords within a Notepad document, and that's obviously not good. And then we can use Defender for Endpoint to actually search for this. We can identify users who are actually saving passwords in the incorrect way, and then we can educate the user to do this correctly. So definitely check this out. Config refresh is another new and upcoming or coming feature I wanted to highlight. This is a really good one because within Intune, whenever your device is checking in, it's also going to refresh all of your policies to make sure that your device is configured correctly. But what happens when your device is offline? It won't be able to check in with Intune because the device itself is offline, so the internet connection is not available, hence it cannot check in, right? So config refresh basically will save all of the configuration coming down from Intune to a safe place within the registry, and then it will use that safe place to determine whether or not something has changed. And if it has changed, then it's going to revert those settings to make sure it's configured the way we as administrators of Intune has, configured it by policy. It will be available soon enough, I would say. I'm not exactly sure when. It's an insider release right now, release preview, but hopefully soon enough, and then we can start using it. Having the config refresh settings available to us within the settings catalog is nice indication that it should soon enough be available within the default builds, the standard builds of Windows as well. So that's really nice. And another thing I wanted to mention here is that it is possible to pause this, because all of this is actually running by a scheduled task. So you can schedule it down to actually refresh every 30 minutes, which is the fastest schedule. And if you want to change something and you need to do that change, maybe you're troubleshooting something or yeah, stuff like that going on, then you can pause that task by using a policy or just finding it in the task scheduler. So yeah, that's config refresh. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. If you have insider release insider builds out there that you can use for testing, then definitely do so. Okay, and Windows Labs. This is really a kind of a favorite to me, because we don't want our users to be local admins, right? And we don't want our admins to be admins either. At least not signing on to a device with their AD credentials, right? So we need to use local credentials whenever we actually find ourselves to have a reason to do so. So it's available. It's general available within Entra ID, which is great. So good job on Microsoft on getting that one available to us. It does support AD in Azure, sorry, Entra ID, but you must use just one. It supports both, but you can just use one at a time. Yeah, and you'll need to update. There was some when Windows Labs were actually released. There was some pretty nasty issues with it and challenges. Those have been resolved, which is great. But definitely don't roll this out if you are on the April CU, but because then it's going to mess things up with you for you. And another thing that's good to know about is do the work in terms of finding overlapping and mismatch in password complexity policies, because within Intune it's just going to drop the policy and everything will be green, right? It's not actually going to check whether the settings actually applied correctly or not. It's just going to tell the device enable this policy, and then it will not consider checking whether it worked or not. So this print screen right here, as you can see, Labs was unable to create an acceptable new password. Please verify that the Labs password length and complexity policy is compatible with the domain and local password policy settings. I received this error on a device after Intune told me everything is up to code. Labs has been enabled. So definitely check this out before rolling it out for to your production machines. Probably you will need to do some proof of concepts or and so on to actually identify any overlapping or policies. And for the next one, do rename the built-in local admin account. You don't necessarily need to create a new account. It's probably going to be slightly more secure, right? But you can actually use CMD or PowerShell without admin privileges to find the well-known the seed for any admin accounts anyway. So it's, to me, in my world, it's not very much more secure, but it adds a lot of complexity because then we must use monitoring systems to actually monitor that the built-in local admin account is being disabled and not enabled by a bad actor or by mistake. So yeah, renaming is my go-to and my recommendation. And for this, as you can see here, I put 3 different devices into one here, this print screen. So for the first one, you can see the caption name is administrator. The one in green, it's administrateur, which is in Swedish. And for the last one, you can see the caption for built-in admin. That's for Windows 365. And if you rename it for all of your devices, it's going to be easy to know about, right? So find a good name that will work for you, and then use that for your devices. And a third recommendation is to enable the audit user account management, because if someone actually finds the password for the built-in or for the Windows Labs managed account, then they could create any new accounts, local accounts, by using the Windows Labs account, right? So we need to audit this to make sure nothing of such is going on, and then we need to monitor this, and we can do that by creating workbooks or fetching that data in Sentinel maybe, or we could use remediation within Intune as well, to kind of just go ahead and fetch that data and create a somewhat easy to read report to figure out whether or not a new a local account which is unapproved has been created. Each device doesn't monitor this by default, so that's why we need to enable it. We can do that by the settings catalog here. And my favorite one, please take control of the local administrators group before you roll out Windows Labs, before Windows Labs is enabled. This is really important because over the years we do tend to, or back in the days, we did tend to, so here's an example. I am a standard user, and I call you, Pierre, and I'd say, hey, Pierre, can you please help me enable, or I must be a local admin over the weekend, and Pierre adds me into the local admin group over the weekend, and then he's supposed to remove me next Monday, but he forgot about it. So that's something that really probably has happened over the years. So retaking control of the built-in local administrators group is really important before adding more stuff into it. And you can read more about my findings on Windows Labs over at my blog rockandroll.tech. Okay, but we're here to talk about Defender as well. So for devices being managed by Intune, it's just a matter of maybe 3 or 5 clicks to actually enable the onboarding to Defender for Endpoint. And nowadays we have something that were called MDE attached, but it's called Security Settings Management, which is really great because that means that we don't even need Intune to onboard to Defender for Endpoint anymore. We can just use the MDE attach, and it's going to onboard to Defender for Endpoint, which is great, but we will also be able to push some specific security settings from Intune down to our MDE attached devices, and that is really cool. So security settings management is for sure something you should look into if you aren't currently managing your devices by Intune, but you are looking into MDE. And obviously you can use PowerShell scripts or SCCM packages to onboard to Intune, and then you can use the MDE attached to kind of push the final security bits from Intune. So, and once we are in Defender for Endpoint, then what, Pierre? Please go ahead. Pierre, do you want to share your screen, or should you just let me know when I should switch slides?
I can take over the sharing. That's okay. Let's see.
Yeah, I'll stop my sharing right now.
And the question that we have all in the meetings, do you see the sharing?
Yep.
Cool. So, what is advanced hunting and why should I care? In the previous session, we saw stuff about the Defender for Office 365, and now we are going into the Defender for Endpoint and the Windows platform that Niklas showed us. We see a lot of threats out there. I'm currently into incident recovery for 2 companies at the moment. So we should care about advanced hunting, and we should care about security in our environment. But let's go back a little bit to the KQL fundamentals. So Custom Query Language, or KQL, is something that Microsoft in Israel and in the R&D center start developing in 2014. And I really hope this is the correct guy for that. Otherwise, I sincerely apologize. But Gusto is inspired by this gentleman, and it's referring to the exploring the ocean of data that we have, because we will have quite a lot of data when we look into the Defender for Endpoint and Microsoft Sentinel and all of our firewall logs and all of the logs that our domain controllers and servers are generating to us. Gusto is an open source available on GitHub if you want to dig down into that. And this product or language is used in many different Microsoft products like Azure Data Explorer, Log Analytics, Microsoft Sentinel that's built on Log Analytics, right? And much, much more. Looking into the common query operators, I will show you how we will structure the query towards our data as well. But the operator that we use most common is the where. So we filter a table to a subset of rows, or we use summarize to aggregate the content, and that's quite important actually, because we want to see anomalies in our data. If we're looking at sign-in logs, perhaps summarizing that type of data can indicate if something is happening to us as a company. We have join if we want to join other tables or two tables into a new table, and we can form that. It's all about the complexity of the data that we need to bring into one table. And then we have count, top, limit, project if we want to select columns to include. And we can also extend, create calculated columns that we need to visualize more of our data. And also find, and I will show you a find operator in one of the queries that I have here, so we can match that in multiple tables. So the structure is we have our table ingested. Let me see, I'm no guru in Zoom it, but let's see. We have our table, and then we need to dig down into that table. We need to know our data, right? So here we can look at, we have the where operator, where the column and the operator could be between that I have down below, or equals or not equals, and so on, and the value of that. So basically, in the Microsoft Docs, we have the storm events where start time between two date times, as we see 2007 11/01, and 1 month ahead of that, where the state equals Florida, and then we want to count all of the rows that we get into that. Some best practices before we move on. As I said, get to know your data. Do a take or a count or a limit to see what do I have in my data? What's in that table? What type of columns do I have? How does the rows look like? Do I need to extract more stuff within a column or within a row, for instance? Apply filters early because, as you may know, we are sharing the compute power that the Custo engine offers to us. So apply filters early because your query will run much faster. And use equals and not case sensitive equals, because that will be more compute power used. And use parse and don't extract the data. Look into Microsoft Learn for more, and a good thing is to go into the Custo Detective agency and also learn more about KQL. But looking into more endpoint stuff, the smart screen, we have a table to query device events, and now we want to see the smart screen app warning, because we have some action types as you can see here. Smart screen app warning, the exploit warning, the URL warning, or user override. We don't want user to override stuff, right? So we can hunt on that as well. But in this case, we are looking into if we have a match in the smart screen app warning or the URL warning. And then we will parse out that because it will be in a JSON format here. So we will parse that JSON and we will find some stuff there. I will show you later on in the slides. We can also, if we have some issues with the firewalls, perhaps we are not sending the correct data up to Defender or the security portal, we can with Custo and with KQL in the advanced hunting troubleshoot that. So we can see what type of URLs are successful or which endpoints are not successful in talking out on that port, perhaps. So we can summarize that. You can take those queries and run it in your environment if you want to. Regular expressions, yeah, we will use quite a lot of regular expressions in the Custo world, actually. We don't have it here, but we will see it more later on here. So now we will do a union of the two tables, device process events and device network events. We will go back 1 week, as you see here, 7 days, where file name in PowerShell exe or PowerShell ISC, if you are still using that. We are using that on servers, right? Where the process command line has any of the following: web client, download file, download data, web request, and so on and so on. And then we will project that with a timestamp device name, because we are most interested in which device are talking out now and how are they talking out with the remote IP, URL, the port, and so on. So we gather that data because maybe we want to block internet from that device, right? But most important is to visualize the data, is my belief. So the summarize is so important because we can see anomalies in our data, because data can deceive, and this is a picture from the Custo detective agency. So learn that operator summarize. And it's also important to broaden your view, because Microsoft are multiple products. We have the Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365. As you may know, many threats starts with an email, right? And now they are looking into the Teams chat as well, dumping files in Teams and so on. So we need to have much more focus on the Defender for Office 365 and all of the things that happening in there. Looking into Defender for Cloud Apps and identity as well, because identity hackers don't hack into our system, they log in to our systems, right? So let's hunt. We have a new Copilot, right? Everything is called Copilot now. We have the security Copilot within the advanced hunting. And in this example, I would zoom in here. We will have, give me all of the devices that signed in within the last hour. And Copilot will generate a query that we can use. We can add it and run it, but be aware it's an AI generated, so we need to verify that that query and it so it's correct built as well. But I hope Microsoft are putting a lot of money and a lot of resources into this, so the Copilot will know KQL more fluently, hopefully. We saw this table earlier. We can skip that actually. I see the time is running out. Here are two queries that we will look into and hunt as well in the next one. As you can see, we have the where action type has any, the app warning or the screen URL. We run that previously. And now we can use the contains as well. We'll use a lot of more compute power, right? I'm not following the best practices here, but we can use that as well. And then we will wildcard the smart screen. So looking into the first query here from the line 1 to 4, we see we have something here. We have a count of 293 hits on custom policy. We have 6 hits on the text scam as well. And this is just for the last 7 days, as you can see up at the top. So that's quite scary. Looking into the next query here from line 6 to 9, we see that we have a URL warning of 300 in this environment in the last 7 days. We have seen the app warning of 6, and we see that one user have override the smart screen. Should they be able to do that? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's a very fishy site that they need that they log into or something else. So we need to be alerted for that one. If we want to expand this even more, we can see that we have some remote URLs here. As you also see, the explorer.exe are not helping us with the remote URL here. It's blank. So please run the latest version of Edge to gather that data. We see the text scam here, and this is a Swedish organization, and the URL here is pointing to a domain register to pay, basically. So putting in your credit card here, and we do not want that, right? Here we use the find word, and we will find in the device events and networks events where the remote URL contains that start of that URL that we saw in the previous slide. And we can see that we have a URL warning here as well, and we see a connection success. So we need to dig down into that to gather that data and see what type of device that is. I have not projected that device here because of the sensitivity, but there will be a device name here as well in that table. I think we can skip that. I see the time is running out. Here's another use case that you can run if you should not run TeamViewer on your systems. Maybe your tier 0 systems or similar. We do not want TeamViewer or any desk installed on that. We see here we are putting that in
we
a
have
dynamic
3
list.
more minutes.
Yep,
We have 3
I'll
more
soon be done here. I will hurry. So take that as well, take that query as well, and run that to see in your environment if you have any vulnerabilities. We can skip that, and that was the end of our session, and we want to thank all of the sponsors as well.
Yeah, and thank you to India Cloud Security Summit for having
Absolutely.
us. So go ahead and enjoy the rest of your day here. Me and Pierre will definitely check some of these sessions out for sure. Thank you.
Cool, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you, Pierre. Hi, Jeevaranjan Kumar, are you there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can call me Jiva. I have
Okay.
Dharmi also
Joined. Okay. Just give me a moment. Let me stop the previous recording.
Yeah, take your time. It's fine.